Hello, good people, and welcome back to Unit 2. Remember, in Part 1 of our previous video, we discussed the constitutional compromises. We discussed the first two of them. We're going to go ahead and dig right into it into issue number 3. Please remember on your note sheet, it goes issue, left side, right side, and then result. Okay, so the third out of our 5 major issues that the Founding Fathers choose to address in this little room where they're in, remember, it is hot as heck. They're going back and forth to Philly for multiple months talking about this. Some of them are sick at some time. Some of them get into shouting matches. There's probably a fist fight or two. I don't know. All right, so the third issue here, should the federal government control interstate and foreign commerce? So we discussed when we talked about the Constitutional Convention, one of the things that was to be determined was who gets to control trade. All right, because one of the issues, this is all rooted back into our parent issues or our problems with the British monarchy. Okay, a lot of the reason that we make governmental decisions is in reaction to things that we didn't like in our previous government. Okay, so we're trying to improve on things as we go. I say we as if I were there. I was not. Okay, so we have issues with the British monarchy saying, like, you have to come and sail into our harbor and give us part of your trade before you can trade with someone else. And we said, no thanks. And then so we were tired of all of these, like, navigation acts. We were tired of the rules, all the taxes. And so when we make the AOC, we're like, you know what? There's no rules for trade. And that did not work well for us either, because we wound up with 13 different types of money, 13 different ways of trading. It was a lot. Okay. So now, should the federal government get into trade that is between states, so interstate, and foreign commerce, so like Virginia and France or Virginia and Spain, whoever else it is? Okay. The first side is, again, northern and southern states, because let's think about what we're trading here and what the real issue is. The real issue is not goods being traded across state lines or services. The real question is, how are we going to use the slave trade in our new government? Okay, and again, notice how not nary a person is saying we should get rid of it completely. They're just trying to figure out how it can benefit both the North and the South. So the North says Congress should be able to regulate both. All right, Congress says you should be able to control trade between the states, aka the slave trade between states, and you should be able to control trade into and out of the country. Here's the deal. Northern states, typically speaking, are not slave-owning states. So if they can tax slave owners for buying slaves and bringing them into the country from West Africa or the Caribbean, or they can tax slave owners for trading them across state lines, there is a stronger chance that there will be less slave trading, which is what the North thinks. Except for not really, though. Okay, but at least that's what they like to think. So they think Congress should be able to place taxes or place rules on goods and services and humans that are being traded between states and between us and other countries. Okay, now the southern states are like, oh, no, because the South is worried that if Congress, okay, and Congress is the name for both the House and the Senate put together. Real quick, before we continue, go hop over to your, this is a listening check, so make sure you're listening. All right, over in the left-hand side where it says questions, at the very, very top, over by issue number 1. So flip your paper back over. If we're on the back, I can't remember if we are or not. Go ahead and head to issue number 1. Please put at the top, like a math problem, House plus Senate equals Congress. Okay, House plus Senate equals Congress. When I speak about Congress, I'm talking about the population House and the equal House together as a squad. If I want to talk about them separately, I'll use their separate names. But if I'm talking about them together, I call them Congress. It's like the couple name for Congress. It's the ship name for Congress. Okay, so if you want to talk about, like, I don't know, like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and they call them like Brangelina if they're talking about both of them. This is the ship name for Congress. Okay, let it happen. All right, so the South here. Let's come back to this. I totally forgot to tell y'all that in the last video. Sorry. All right, so Congress should not be able to regulate both interstate and foreign trade because the South is scared that they're going to tax not only goods but also the slave trade. Okay, they're like, oof, there goes my free labor. Whatever will I do? Pay the people who work for me? No way. Couldn't do that. That's sarcasm. All right, so they're also scared that if Congress gets to not only tax people, but also put rules on trade, that they're going to end the slave trade. Spoiler alert, Congress is not bold enough to do that for another 80 years. Okay? Okay. So they're scared that regulation and rules are going to mean the end of the slave trade, which means plantation owners in there are going to end up having to pay people to work for them. Oh my gosh, what a terrible thing. Okay, so the compromise here is called the Slave Trade and Commerce Compromise. All right, so let's go ahead and put these dots down. Congress does get to make rules on both interstate trade of goods, services, and humans and foreign commerce. However, they are not allowed to tax exports. All right, remember, exports go out. There are things that we ship out. They're also not allowed to touch the slave trade until 1808. This happens to be exactly 20 years from the date that they start this constitutional convention. So this is probably the sneakiest part of this compromise, okay? Because this means that the vast majority of all the founding fathers who are in that room at the time are going to be dead by 1808. So that means that they won't have to deal with it. Sneaky, okay? So let's see which side, North or South, is going to win this compromise. Who is happy about Congress regulating interstate and foreign trade? This will be the North. So we're going to put an N for North beside this bullet. Who's happy about Congress not taxing exports? Let's think about how the South makes their money. All right, let's think back to our colonial regions. The South ships out all of their cash crops. So we're going to put an S beside this second bullet because this makes the South happy. All right, and let's think about who is going to benefit from not having the slave trade until not having it messed with until 1808. This is 20 years of free and clear, just trade slaves with whomever and whenever and wherever you want. Okay, this is also the South benefiting. So, real talk, the South is the one who wins this compromise. Okay, which turns out to be very detrimental to anybody who is a slave. Okay, so North wins this one, and the South win the bottom two bullets. Okay, that's how slaves factor into trade. The fourth issue, before we even get to the leader, we have to figure out slaves. Okay, and again, remember, nobody is telling them that they should stop, having slaves in the first place. All right, issue number 4 here is how should the executive leader be chosen? So now that we have figured out our representation, now that we have figured out our slavery and representation issue and our slavery and trade issue, now let's get to the president, okay? So who is going to pick the president? All right, side 1 is if Congress chooses, okay? Oh, dang, I need to update this because this man is deceased. Sorry. All right, so Congress gets to elect the president since they're already elected by the people. These are with states who are like, you know what? Instead of the people picking the governor of our state or like the state version of a president, we'll let the people who make laws for us go ahead and they'll elect it, okay? So the question is, do we trust the people to make a good choice? These homies over here say, no, we don't, okay? We only trust them to put us in power so that we can legislate for them, and then we'll make all the choices from there, okay? So that's side 1, Congress getting to choose. Let's go ahead and put out to the side, not in the little margin, but just like out to the side, maybe in a different color, maybe highlight and just put, don't trust the people, okay? Don't trust the people. Side 2 over here, instead of Congress choosing the president on our behalf, side 2 is just we let the citizens choose directly, okay? So they think that this set of people is like the states who let the people just directly choose the governor instead of letting the legislature choose it for them. They like this, okay? So instead of having people elect a lawmaker and just be like, you know what, you make all my decisions for me, I will trust you to do that, the people will go ahead and choose who they want to be president. Okay? So that is side 2, citizens choosing. The result here is a real convoluted mix of the two, and we call this the Electoral College. All right? So in order to elect the president, every state gets a certain number of votes. Okay? So the number of votes that your state gets is not pulled out of thin air. It is an actual number based on real things, okay? So the number of votes you have equals the number of people in Congress. And remember, Congress is not just the House, and Congress is not just the Senate. It is the population House and the equal House together, okay? All the people who make federal laws for us, we call them Congress. So currently, North Carolina has 13 people who are in the House based on population, and we have 2 people in the Senate because everybody is equal in the Senate. So that means that we have 15 total votes for who gets to be president. So here's how this works in November. All right, so when we elect a president every 4 years, the people of that state vote. And let's say, and we have a two-party system. So we have either a Democratic person or a Republican person is going to receive that number of votes. Okay, so, and this is just like any other game, all right, just like any other competition, the person who has the most points at the end of the game wins. All right, in this instance, it's the first person who gets to 270. Okay, so go ahead and put on your result in parentheses down here, 270 to win. 270 to win. Okay, so here's what happens. All right, this is a blank map. All right, so our time zones in the country go from right to left. Okay, so like we got Eastern, we got Central, we got Mountain, and we got Pacific. And then we got poor little Hawaii and Alaska over here. All right, so let's say, for example, we're talking about the 2016 election. So 56% of people in North Carolina voted for Donald Trump rather than Hillary Clinton. So since Donald Trump is a Republican, this state and our 15 votes in North Carolina would go to the Republican president, or Donald Trump. Conversely, in Virginia, they have 13 electoral votes because they're a little smaller than we are in population. Okay, and so those 13 votes can either go to the Republican or the Democratic candidate, whichever one the state chooses. So whoever wins over 51%, or whoever wins the majority of the votes in that state, that state then gives their number of votes to the party, either Republican or Democrat, until somebody hits 270. Okay? So here's how it looked in 2016. So for example, like we said, North Carolina gives their 15 votes away. Virginia gives theirs to Hillary. Maryland gives theirs to Hillary. Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And then as we go right to left, as the polls closed, all right, people who are voting, as we close those polls up, eventually the number, like you collect that number of votes in that state. And so Trump ended up with 306 and Hillary ended up with 232. And again, you've got to have 270 to win. So if you hit this number in the middle and you win 270 votes, you win the presidency of the United States. All right, and then issue number 5, who gets more power, the state or the federal level? Well, this is the one, not slavery, not choosing a leader, not representation. This is the one that gives us our first two political parties, because our founding fathers were kind of petty. All right, so who gets more power, the state or federal level? The side one is our federal side, and we call them the Federalists. Oh my gosh, y'all, please make sure you underline the word federal. They named themselves after the level they liked the best. Got it? Good. All right. They love this new Constitution. They are here for it. They love it. It's their favorite. Okay. They believe that the federal government should be supreme. Okay. They are having AOC flashbacks. They're like, listen, we tried to give you states some power and you acted foolish for 10 years. So now we're going to take it back to the federal government, and the states get little amounts of rights. Not huge like they used to have, but smaller. All right. Andrew, Lord help, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. All right, he was the first Supreme Court justice, or first chief Supreme Court justice. James Madison ends up becoming president, yada, yada. All these three humans are like top dog VIP Federalists. Okay, so the Federalists love the Constitution. They say yes to the Constitution. They think it needs to be nothing added to it, not fixed. It's fine the way it is. Okay, side 2 over here is the anti-Federalists. Real creative party name. Go y'all, okay? They are anti-federal level. They are pro-state level. They say, we 100% will not ratify, aka approve. Let's go ahead and circle ratify, and out to the side, let's put approve, pass or approve, all right? They say, we will not sign this new Constitution. We will not approve it until you give us some rights, okay? So we'll get into that in a little bit. They think their liberties or their freedoms are going to be taken away if there is not a list of them, or a Bill of Rights, aka the BOR. They favor the wealthy over the common people, typically speaking. TJ, Samuel Adams, and Patrick Henry are some VIP anti-feds, okay? And so the question here is, do we have a list of our rights on the end of our Constitution or not, okay? And don't tread on me. Over here is their little flag. This is typically associated with anti-federalists because if you'll notice, this rattlesnake, we have seen this before. It used to be chopped up into pizzas. Look at this dramatic transformation, okay? So this is typically the flag that is associated with them. Sorry, someone's calling me. All right, so the result here is the Bill of Rights. The feds are like, yes, we'll put your little list of rights on there if you will sign this document. And the anti-feds are like, yes, that's fine. Okay, remember, ratify means to pass or approve. And 2 years after we get into this meeting, 2 years, we ratify the United States Constitution. Okay, and here in our next few videos, we'll talk about the Constitution and how it looks. And that has been part 2.